Do you ever think like, why do I think this way? Why is it that everything that I think about, I feel like I see? Why is it I can only see negative? How can I attract more positivity? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about both of those things. We're going to talk about your RAS system and your cognitive bias, right? So let's chat about that. Welcome to the positivity experience. Let's learn about our brain so you can rewire it so it can benefit you in every way. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and I am so excited for today's topic. This is like a huge piece of like what I studied for so long to help me understand my brain, how to reprogram it. And if you're on the Patreon, we are going to talk about steps that you can take to start to reprogram your RAS system, how you can start switching up the narrative. Of course, it's going to come with a worksheet. So if you are on the Patreon, it's there. If that's something that you'd like to visit me over at patreon.com/the positivity experience, or you can just anywhere that you're getting this podcast right now, you can look in the description. There's a little link. You can click on it if that's something that you're interested in. So it's always going to be like a complement to whatever it is that we're talking about this week. This is exciting for me. I'm so excited because the brain is such a cool thing. And I promise, so when I was writing down things I want to talk to you, I found myself getting very collegiate, very like, oh, okay, let's talk about the hippocampus. And you know what? All of the different areas of your brain, they're all going to be valid to anything that we discuss, talk about, reprogram. So I will drop them in from time to time. But as I was reading them, I'm like, oh God, this is very like we're in college. And while it's good to know, I also don't want to bore you to tears and start using these words. And you're like, okay, I don't even care. Just tell me how to fix it. Like, shh, be quiet. Like, I don't care. If I was in school, then fine, but I'm not. So I'm going to try to like make it as abbreviated to where you can understand it. Because I did just recently get my 95,000 hours completed in my advanced certification for my mindfulness. I've been a mindful practitioner now for years. And 95,000 hours is a little bit over 10 years, but it took me about 16 years because did a lot of practicing, helping with meditation, law of attraction, which is manifestation. And this is where we're going to marry, let's call it woo-woo. Let's call it what some people go, woo, that's a little out there, to like pure on science. Like it's the same thing. So the law of attraction is never, ever, ever going to be about what you want or what you think you want or anything out of desperation. That is not how you attract whatsoever. So we're just going to talk a little bit about it, but I promise I have a whole different topic coming to you, a whole different podcast on that topic of law of attraction and why it works, what it means, how you have to analyze it. But part of that is your RAS system. So that's short for Reticular Activating System. So I want you to think of it as an ascending and descending in your brain, okay? So it's going to use various parts of your brain and think of it as a program. All these little neurons. Remember, we have all these neurons. Think about what your brain, what your body is. It's all energy. It's all energy. It's nothing else but energy, right? So you have this system in your brain, and think of your RAS system as, it controls your consciousness, right? So your RAS system controls your consciousness. It controls your sleep-awake cycles, right? It controls a lot of things. And think of it as a program. So, and that's the thing that people don't realize. We as humans make our lives really difficult, much more than we probably really need to. It's because we look at things from such a cognitive bias, which we're going to talk about, because it kind of goes hand in hand here, because you'll never be able to start worrying about like, how am I going to manifest or attract things or change my stuff while still staying in a negative cycle, right? Like those things don't work. Those things can't, it's like two magnets hitting together. It's just not going to stick. Just never going to stick. Like you can't be negative and then want something positive. It's just not going to work that way. And so what your RAS system does, it works on so many different things, and it lives in the base of your brainstem, all right? It just kind of lives there. And in general, when you are born, think about the programs that you're given, right? Sometimes before you're even put on this planet, you got a name, you got a religious and a political affiliation, you got an expectation. If you're one of those few people have your college paid for. If they just assume you're going to go to college, what if you don't want to go to college? You don't gotta. What if you want to go to trade school? What if you want to start your own business? All of which you're allowed to do. But before you're put on this planet, you're pretty much already starting to get pre-programmed before you're even here. But every experience in your life is some level of a program, right? If you get into a routine, that is a program. If you are constantly negative, your mind is programmed that way. You've allowed it to be programmed that way. Yes, by experiences, by trauma. And another thing that the RAS system, your reticular activating system, houses is attention. So this is why, like, I have adult ADHD. So you'll find that anybody who has, let's say, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, more like ADHD, various things like that. It's not that it's damaged. Your RAS system isn't damaged. It's just like deregulated. It's like dysregulated, I should say. So think of it as like emotional dysregulation. It's the same thing within your activating system, right? So when you can think about how that works and what that looks like, funny things like humor jolts your activating system, right? Because you do realize that within our brain, we use such a minuscule amount of your brain. You have all of this like gray matter in your brain that's just like, it's just there. It's just there. But if we could tap into it, I mean, my God, I think who knows what would happen, right? So in your RAS system, if you're not focusing on staying present and intentional, it's going to be a problem. So the idea of reprogramming it and understanding it and how you can utilize it to your favor is you're going to take that, your RAS system, which is consciousness, to your subconsciousness, right? Because think about, you ever do something and you're like, well, that was weird. I think I just did that subconsciously. Like you're not even thinking about it. It's like a subconscious thing. When you can take your consciousness and you can take your subconsciousness and you can marry those two together, now we have intentional living. That is intentional living. You've heard me talk about it again. I have another podcast coming out on that. It is a lifesaver. It has saved my life. It has literally saved my life, right? And so you have to remember that any time that you are not staying present, your RAS system, however it has been programmed, let's say it's been negativity, let's say it's how you do things, let's say it's how you see things, you're choosing to see what you see, it's programmed that way. And you know who's in charge of the programming? You are. You are. But you have to allow yourself that. So this goes into, so let's say you're around negative. Like you guys know a lot of my history, my backstory. It'll be in the book. I'm writing a lot about it. And like how I used it. But by the way, I had to reprogram my RAS system. My RAS system and then my cognitive biases and you combine that with any medications, therapies, anything like that. Those were all great and complementing tools. But honestly, intentional living, staying in the present space, the 5 journals, all have been intricate in reprogramming my RAS system. Because my RAS system and my cognitive biases have always in the past, throughout my teen years, early 20s, childhood, has been negative. Choosing to see what you see. So what does that mean? What is a cognitive bias and how does that equate? Because your RAS system helps to create your cognitive biases. In turn, it's the chicken and the egg, right? Because then while your RAS system says, oh, okay, well, this is what happens, your cognitive biases go, you know what? You're right. And by the way, it's meant to protect you. Your RAS system goes, God, we don't like that. We're going to protect ourselves. The problem is that you've programmed yourself to see threats that aren't really threats or negatives that aren't really negatives, right? So remember, negative emotions are not bad. They only become an issue when you see everything in that black or white kind of way. So I want you to think of what your cognitive bias is. Do you ever think about, let's say you're in the market for a house. Okay. No, let's say a car. Let's say you're in the market for a car. And the car that you want, you've decided the kids are grown now. You want your sports car to go with whatever cars you already have. You want your sports car. You're ready for your sports car. And you decide you're going to get a convertible, let's make it fun, Jaguar. You're going to get a convertible Jaguar. Okay. And you want it to be like a midnight blue, midnight dark, almost looks black, but blue. Okay. So you've committed that into your visualization, into your RAS system, into your cognition to say, I want this. I really, really want this. Okay. So you start looking at it, you start investigating it, you start researching it, you see what you need to do. So you go out on the road, you're like, I'm going to go grab some lunch. You're driving down the road and you just happen to see a convertible Jaguar. You're like, oh my God, that's a convertible. Is that a black one? Oh my God, it's black. It's not the same color, but oh my goodness. Okay, you're like, wow, that's crazy. I was just thinking about that car. That's crazy. Well, your filtration system from your RAS, right? Because your RAS system, you can't absorb everything that's around you. You would literally go crazy, like literally go crazy. If your brain allowed, your RAS system allowed everything around you to come into your brain, you wouldn't know how to process anything. So it's a filtration system that says, hey, my cognition says this is what I believe in. These are my limited beliefs. This is what it is. So it's trained to filter out things that doesn't serve that need, right? So if now I start saying, I want this convertible Jaguar midnight blue, I have now told my RAS system, my brain, this is important to me. This is important. I have to align with it. Now we're going into a little bit of law of attraction here, right? Consciousness, subconsciousness married together creates intention. Intention creates attraction, right? That's just how that works, right? And again, you have to believe you already have it. So that's a different belief state. And again, we'll talk about it when we get to that topic. But it's imperative to realize that, it's kind of like I have a Lincoln now. My truck is a Lincoln. Okay. I rarely, you think, okay, Ford, when I had my Fords, saw Fords all the time, have my Lincoln. I see it all the time. I see if it's not that one, it might be like a Navigator that's like one up from mine. It might be a different color. I'm like, oh my God, my daughter, her car is a 2017 Buick, a Buick. Okay. It's a Buick. Okay, I'm not saying Buicks aren't big, but my God, every time we're together, we see Buicks everywhere. Why? Because we're trained to our brain to say, this is important or this is something I align with. So I need you to filter anything out that doesn't serve that, and then you can see it, right? Or, anytime that you're like, wow, I'm really focusing on eating more vegetables, okay? Like, you're like, I really want to add more broccoli to my diet, like to the way I eat. I want to add more broccoli. Well, guess what? You're sitting there, you're going on your Instagram. You're like, oh my God, this is like an ad for broccolini or, whatever grocery store that has broccoli on sale. It's because it's not, they've always been there, by the way. It's not like all of a sudden you've made this happen because you're magic. Like, no, that's not how that works. What has happened is you've aligned it into your brain to say, this is important, which is why your cognitive biases seem to be what you see. You know how I always tell you, you'll see what you choose to see? I use this example all the time, and it's so important that you understand this. This is a cognitive bias right here, and it goes into trust and all this other stuff. Sure. I call everybody babe, darling, love bug, and I tell everybody I love them. I don't care if I met you 30 seconds or if I've known you forever. I'm going to tell everybody I love you. It's just me. That's how I roll. I don't need anything deeper. There's nothing to read into it. But if someone is seeing me for like services, like, is a client of mine, and they didn't tell you because, by the way, they don't need to, right? They're working on their own stuff and they're dealing, this is their growth. They don't need to tell you what it is. And you, for some odd reason, never go through somebody's phone, but let's say highly no, hard pass. But let's say you just happen to see a text message. The phone is open. They're sitting next to you and you get this person gets a message and it says, hey babe, because again, call everybody babe. Hey babe, not going to be able to make the 2:00. Can I meet you at 3 instead? Let's say I've come up with something. I'm not going to give a thesis as to what I'm meeting you for. No need to do that. And the guy or whomever says, yeah, sounds great. Can't wait to see you. I go, oh, me too. Love you. And then you see that. What are you going to see? Now you're going to spiral and you're going to see what you want to see. Are you going to inquire about it? Are you going to have the emotional maturity to say, hey, I didn't mean to really go through your stuff, but that was a little concerning. Like, I'm a little weirded out by that. Like, what is that? And now they might be a little annoyed that you were looking. Very valid. But then they said, oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Like, I'm seeing somebody to really help me work through my stuff. And that's my person. That's my coach. And you go, oh, okay. But that's not what you were trained to see in your mind. You trained it to see, like, I knew this person was stepping out on me. So you're going to automatically see what you choose to see too, right? Now, sometimes you're going to choose to see what you did not see what you see. So again, it's what you choose. You know how some people go, God, why couldn't I have seen that? You chose not to see it during that time, right? And some things, of course, are from trauma and trauma bonds. But I'm saying in general, in life, you're going to see what it is that you want to see. And remember, we are drawn and we are attracted to what it is that we believe in. And just because we believe in it doesn't mean that it's going to be true for everybody or that that's the truth that is solid, right? True facts carry no emotions. If I tell you the sun is out, whether you like sunny days or not, you can dispute it all you want. the sun is out. You can yell about it. The sun is there. It doesn't care. It doesn't carry emotions. So true facts don't carry emotions, and it can't be refuted, right? It really can't be refuted. You can debate it all you want, but it can't really refute it. But that's why you'll find social media really gears people towards that, right? Social media knows that. Social media is reliant upon your confirmation bias. It's reliant upon how your RAS system is programmed. It is reliant upon what it is that you align with, right? So you have to realize that you're seeing what you choose to see a lot of the times. And of course, it makes sense to only align technically with what it is that you believe, or what it is that you desire, and what it is that you love. But you also want to keep an open mind to be able to see it from different perspectives. If you only watch, say, a news channel that gears towards more of what your political beliefs are, well, then you're only going to be biased to that one thing. Well, that doesn't show any emotional maturity whatsoever. And you don't want to do that. You're literally telling your RAS system, this is what I need to see. And then anything that refutes that, say you watch another channel that isn't what you believe in, and you start spiraling out of control because you're like losing your mind over the fact that it's different than what you believe in. And then you get angry, and then you can't differentiate between the fact that somebody else is allowed to have a different opinion. It just becomes problematic, right? And so, yes, that's why if you want to really evaluate who and what is around you, and if it's moving you in the positive direction, if it is benefiting you, is it something that you feel like you're always drained by? Is it something that you feel is not good for your mental health? Why are you contributing to it? Right? So you have to be very, 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 very careful of that. Now, it's easier for you a lot of times too to pick somebody else apart versus looking at yourself and saying, what are the areas I need to work on? It's easy for you because your cognitive bias says, I believe this way, and this is how it is. I love to go out in the moon time, no clothes on, moon bathe. I'm that girl that's going to be out there. You may say, I would never do that. Well, you don't have to. I'm not trying to tell you to. I'm not trying to convince you to. And if you would never do it, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't need to hear that you would never do it because I'm not asking you. But my cognition tells me, my bias says, I am doing something that fills my soul. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not harming anyone. I'm doing something that fills me up. And if you don't understand it, that's not me to process. So I'm not going to align with how you feel about it. I'm not going to align with all of the things that you think is weird about it. I'm just not going to align with it. So if I'm not going to align with it, I'm not even going to bother seeing it. And if I do see it, it's in and out of my system, in my RAS system. It's just in and out. In and out. So, you have to understand that very often, think about this too. You're driving down the street and you see a tree and it has green and pink and purple leaves, not flowers, just leaves. Like it just sprouted out. You're going to be like, oh my God, you're going to pay attention to it because it's unique. And this is the problem that you have with your gratitude. You don't realize that the ordinary things are what you focus on too. Yeah, of course it's going to pull your attention because it's not what you would normally see. It's change. It's also why people have a hard time with change. You have a hard time with change because you go, oh my God, wait a minute. This is what I'm used to. This is why you find people who find comfortability in chaos, comfort in chaos, right? So if you're always living in this stereotype too, let's say you see somebody and you go, well, the stereotype says people of this color or creed always do blah, blah, blah. Like if you stereotype everyone and you choose to see them from that perspective, like, oh, like my daughter, she's very, very emo. And a lot of people have this thing where they think emo people are like, they have a lot of stereotypes with them. And I'm like, you don't even know half of these people. You're just assuming because they're dressing with something and they have black nail polish on that they're said way, right? Because you're choosing to see it that way. And that's not emotional mature. You're allowing your emotional maturity to feed your cognitive bias, in turn, continuing the same pattern in your RAS system, in your consciousness, in your subconsciousness. You are marrying those two together and saying, this is facts. It's not facts. You can't classify a whole group of people or a whole gender of people and say they are blah. That's not true. That's stereotypes. And you're going to you're going to sit there and you're going to project that thinking upon other people. Did you see what she was wearing? Oh my God. Do you know what they say about emo people? Why are you projecting that? And why are you allowing yourself to be projected upon? Whatever your thought and your belief is, like I will create content for whomever it is for. Here it is. If you don't align with it, then it's not for you. Just keep scrolling. You don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be mean about it. Just scroll by. And even if you are, I'm just going to block you, right? Because it doesn't align with me. I'm not going to allow that. That's not important to me. I will see it. I will block it, and it is filtered out. I'm not going to think about it. And so this is where you have to get clear with how your RAS system is processing. What are you giving attention to? What are you focusing on? Right? Because again, if you're projecting your autobiography of your past onto another person, why are you doing that? Why? What are you getting from that? Okay. Another thing with your cognitive biases, and it really is a stimulating piece, is you need that immediate response. You need those immediate results. That's why we shop on Amazon. That's why we might eat a whole tub of ice cream. That's why anything. You need the immediate results. This is why people struggle so much in therapy, coaching, fitness, things like that, because you are trying so hard to get that instant result. I need a fast fix. I need it to work. I need it to do this. I'm not seeing results fast enough. Me, need this immediately. Because you need that to confirm that what you're thinking and how you feel in the direction that you're taking is the right way. That's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. So it's kind of like a cognitive ideal, right? Where it's a little bit different in a bias, but it's sort of the same. Like in a cognitive ideal where you go, well, if I get into a relationship with this person, I could probably change them, or you know what, we can definitely make it work. I can see potential here. I'm going to hold out hope on this. Or you could say, I'm going to accept this for what it is. And yes, we can communicate and have talks. But if I see that things really aren't changing, I'm not going to sit there and say, I can make it work because I'm going to wish this ideal into existence. So many people go through that in relationships and friendships, right? I see what I want to see. I see the potential in what it is. You can see the potential. You can work towards it. But if the other person is not on the same page as you, you can see whatever you want to see. And that's all you're going to see. And then you're going to realize, you're going to go, gosh, but why? I thought that I wanted this to. Yeah, you wanted it to, but there's more than one person. There's more than one person. So going back to the RAS system for a minute, the thing that can really be hard on that is information overload. Really think about that. Okay. You're sitting here and you're trying to reprogram your brain, but then your cognitive biases go, well, I only want to listen to what I believe. Again, that's emotional immaturity. That's great to align with it. Like if you're like, oh, I don't really get down like that. That's not going to serve me. That's fine. But be willing to hear somebody else's perspective. Be willing to learn a different way. That was extremely helpful. And that's how it led me to my Buddhist practice, because I tried different things. I looked at different things. I was raised a certain way. I chose to reprogram that because it wasn't serving me. It was creating more problems than not. And so you have to be willing to say, if you want to reprogram and marry your consciousness with your subconsciousness to live towards your goals, now we're talking. So in order to meet that, you know what you're going to do? It's visualization. It's meditation. It's staying here and now. It's dreaming. Dreaming is amazing. I don't mean like sleeping dreaming. I mean full on dreaming within reason. I mean, I cannot sing my way out of a paper bag. So I'm probably not going to dream about singing backup for Beyonce. It's probably just not going to be what I dream about. So, but I like to see it as though it already happened, because when you do that, it's a feeling state. That feeling state is now reprogramming what I'm telling my RAS filtration system to see. If I see sadness, that's all I'll see. If I see joy, I'll always find joy. I didn't say I'm going to be sitting there in joy all the time and pretend that I don't have emotions. Nobody said that. Of course I have the emotions. And of course that's exactly what I'm going to do. But that's the whole idea, is you want to align with what serves you. You want to align with what you see. And the only way to start shifting that is to be aware of it, is to be aware that your consciousness and what you're focusing on subconsciously is going to always be what you see. Remember, everybody perceives reality different, right? But at the end of the day, we're all just programs. We're all just energy. We're all just programs. That's all we are. So when you're choosing to see it as it is versus how you want it to be, what you think it should be, what this happened and that happened, when you're living in the past, you'll never be able to reprogram your RES system because you're going to keep feeding that. Now you have to go back to heal it, but you're seeing it from a different place. You're seeing it from a place of power. You're not seeing it from a place of sadness or victimization, or that's not how you see it. So when you think of something as though you align with it, as though you already have it, it's not a desperation feeling. You can't trick your RES system. There's no tricking here. You're not going to trick the universe. You're not going to be like, I don't want to write something negative. I'll breathe it into life. You've already breathed it into life. Just because you're not talking about it out loud and you're not writing about it, you've aligned with it. It's already there. It's already there, whether you write it down or not. You've already aligned with it. You're not going to get over on the universe. You're not going to get over on yourself. So again, in order to change it, you must first be aware of it. Then remember your RES system, your brain is smart, but it's only going to believe what you tell it, what you feel. It's not going to take that over for you. Junk in, junk out. Positive in, positive out. I mean, that's just how that is. What you feed is what you're going to breed. So that's why you have to heal those things. Yes. Is it harder to start to reprogram it if you have ADHD or schizophrenia or something else? Harder. I didn't say impossible. You can still start to reprogram that RES system. Right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that over on Patreon and some steps that you can do to like get there. But you also have to remember what you are aligning with cannot be an idea. It has to be something that's within your subconscious that you're visualizing. In turn, that will make more opportunities appear, right? They've been there. It's not going to magically make things pop up. Things aren't just going to magically be. They've always been there. It's just your system, your RES system has filtered it out because it didn't seem to be important. You were too concerned about being sad or getting better or all of those things. And so but out of desperation, not as though you're already better, not as though you are already working towards that. And it's never going to be in a way that is going to be like, well, here's your answer. No. That's not how law of attraction works at all. It's going to give you opportunities so you can work on achieving that goal, but you got to be clear, crystal clear. Not, I want to be happy. Not, I want to be at peace. That's nothing. That doesn't mean anything. That's a general broad thing. You got to align with what that feels like and align with what that looks like. And guess what that means? Micro goals, baby steps. Going forward, going backwards. That's how you reprogram something. It takes time. It takes rebooting. It takes resetting. And then you have to say, listen, yeah, the meditation thing, and we're going to talk about that too. The meditation thing, oh my God, amazing. Amazing. So I just need you to get very, very clear that your program, you're the programmer here. You're in charge of this program. You are in charge of reprogramming. You are in charge of seeing things differently and aligning your consciousness and your subconsciousness to create intent. And you got to do that by being willing. Being willing? Yeah, being willing. I think that sounds right. By being willing to get uncomfortable. Be willing to go into the unknown. Be willing to go in that deep, dark abyss to just, hey, I'm going to do this. Because if you fear it, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see all the reasons why you can't. That's why you stay off of Google for anything mental or medicals. Please don't go down Google. Don't do the Google rabbit hole. Hard pass. We're not doing that. Because you're not going on there to see, oh, well, what can I do to make this better? No, or, let's look at the positive side of it. No, you are not. And what you look for, you're going to find. And so just remember, your cognitive biases can really hurt you. Your RES system, if it's not reprogrammed, can hurt you, but it's really your confirmation bias that does that. So if you can't just tell yourself you believe it. If it's not a feeling state, I don't care how many affirmations, how many podcasts, how many books, how much self-help, how much therapy, how much medication you take. None of that is going to matter if you're not willing to sit there and release the things that no longer serve you, revisualize, readdress it, revisit it. If you're not willing to take the steps of discomfort, it's not just going to happen. No one's just going to come in on a horse with their little sword drawn and save the day. It isn't going to happen. No computer programmer is going to come and just, it's not like Men in Black. I'm not just going to come with a little thing and go beep, and then all of a sudden you just forget all the stuff and then woo, we get to relive again. That's not how that works. So you can take some lessons that you've learned and various things that have happened in your life, and you can take that into your life and help that reprogramming. But you'll start seeing what you align with. You will always see what you align with and not what you tell yourself, not what you think that you're faking it. It's not just faking it to make it. You can't just fake it to make it all the time. That's not a thing. So you have to start at the basis. You have to start at the basic stuff. You can't build a house on sand. You got to create the foundation. You got to level the ground. You got to make sure that when you pour different things that are going to hold like the beams and stuff, that has to take time to sit. This is not going to be fast, but you are in control far more than you give yourself credit for. So if you want your life to start to change, you're going to have to change how you see it. And changing how you see it is going to be really drilling down and being honest with your goals and honest with how you want to feel. And then allow yourself to slowly align your subconscious with your consciousness, because then your RAS system is going to filter out the things that no longer serve you and give you the things that you align with.